And welcome to the Screen Team. It's our very first show of 2015, and we've got a special one for you this evening. It's all about movie musicals. And to join us in this adventure into the world of music and movies, we've got Sabrina J. Sabrina, how are you?
I'm awesome, as always.
Sabrina, we've got a very special guest. We've got Miss Toby Spencer here.
Yeah, she's really awesome.
She was on the show a couple weeks ago, and she's back for our very first show, and you have picked the movies for us.
I have some of my favorites of all time, and they may be some that a lot of our younger listeners have never seen, because some of them are, like Brigadoon, is kind of obscure.
Yeah, you're doing Brigadoon?
Brigadoon.
We're also doing 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. I had Toby talk to me earlier this week, and she's like,
hey, if you're going to get it,
you're saying the movie title wrong. For like,
what have you been saying?
I've always said
7 Brothers for 7 Brides.
I've always said that. Always.
That's because you're a rebel.
Yes, I am. You know this about me.
Yeah, but if you're going to do this Rodgers and Hammerstein, you're going to have to do it right.
He can't say there's a stop sign. He always says there's a pots.
A pot.
Say it backwards.
He said, yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty weird like that.
I'm sure you've gotten questioned about that more than once.
Yes, I have.
I think he's covering something up, to be honest.
And finally tonight we're going to be doing All That Jazz.
Yeah, the story of Bob Fosse.
It's going to be very exciting. So let's start off with Brigadoon. Toby, what is this musical all about?
This musical it's about a couple of fellas from the city who take a hunting trip to the moors of Scotland and fall into a fantasy world that is set a couple hundred years in the past from where they are. It's basically made in the 40s with Gene Kelly and Van Johnson. And they find this little village that looks like it stepped out of the late 1700s, and the world ensues.
Yeah, at first they don't know that, though. They're there, and Gene Kelly meets Sid Cherie. What's her name? Sid Cherie? Did I say that right? Cherise. Hey, pot stops. Yeah. It's all the same thing, all right? Settle down over there.
A beautiful Scottish maid.
Settle down over there. So he meets her, he meets Sid, and falls in love. Love at first sight kind of thing, right?
The storyline, what is going on is there's going to be a wedding in this town. And it's preparations for the wedding celebration of Sid Cherise's character's sister. And, of course, the whole town is all involved, as little villages were at that time. And like you said, they don't fall in love immediately, but there's that connection, and as the day progresses, he begins to think, there's something's not quite right here.
Right.
And kind of gets the idea of what's going on.
And when he finds out what's going on, he's got a big decision to make at the very end of the movie, correct?
And he does, and at the 3/4 of the way, he makes the decision to return to his reality. So you're thinking, no, that's not happily ever after. But things end a little differently.
Right. So what is it about this film that you like?
I like, of course, I've talked about before, I love fantasy movies and the romance, and I love Gene Kelly. Anything that Gene Kelly was in. The man was just a phenomenal dancer and choreographer. And if I'm not mistaken, he did choreograph this movie. And Sid Charisse, just the grace and her beauty. But the way that the characters come together, and the music is just great. Bonnie Jean, I've been singing all day in my head. It's one of the dance tunes that was put together and that involved the whole cast. And just the fantasy of it, and that it wasn't a tidy ending at first. That he did go back to his reality, but the dream kept pulling him back. He wanted his romance, and he got it.
That's the way it was for Sabrina and I.
Yes, it was.
I was like, baby, I got to leave you. But then she just sucked me right back. She pulled me back.
It was more like, if you leave, I'm not coming after you.
We don't have to talk about that part of the story, okay?
But it also, it gives you the, do you want to sacrifice what you know for the dream? But you did have Van Johnson's character. He didn't want to go back. He wanted. Plus, you had a character that was in the village, the fella who he had actually loved the girl that was getting married, and she chose another man, and he's wanting out. So you see different aspects of nobody seems to be happy with what they have until they find love.
I love Van Johnson's character.
He's a hoot.
I related to him. He's just grumpy old guy, but he's, a young guy, but he was grumpy.
OMG. I just caught on to that. You are that guy.
Yeah.
He's Van Johnson's character.
And I'm Gene Kelly's character.
Yeah, I want to be Gene Kelly, but I'm Van Johnson all the way. Sabrina?
I would have loved to be Sid Charisse. I mean, she was just so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And the dancing.
What's crazy is we're watching this, and he's all up in IMDb giving me all this info and like, did you know Sid's legs were insured for $1 million or something like that?
So what? I'm giving you facts, man.
Yeah, movie facts.
There's your romance.
What'd you want me to do? Get up and start dancing with you?
Yes. No, I...
With you, so she was dancing?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I honestly, I fell asleep like several nights in a row trying to get through this movie.
Oh, serious?
I did. I had a real rough time with it.
Yeah.
And I love musicals. And I'm sure that I would really fall in love with this story if they redid it. And I never, ever say that. I never want them to touch an oldie but goodie. But I don't think this is a goodie. And that's just my opinion.
That's
because
your opinion.
Maybe I'm stressed out. Maybe at the end of my day was not the perfect time to watch this movie.
That may have been.
So maybe a good rainy Saturday afternoon when you would normally curl up with an old book, maybe you could curl up with this movie. I did love the dancing. I thought it was underdone for the time that they were doing those kinds of movies. And maybe it's because Gene Kelly did the choreography and he did what worked for him.
Right.
There's a large cast and there's a lot of characters to follow around. Some of them I liked. Some of them I didn't have to like or dislike. They were there, but they were taking up too much of my time.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
And maybe that's where I fell short with this movie. The coloration, the scenery blew my mind.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. The costumings, just made me want to go get my sewing machine out and dress up. Okay, so that part of it, loved it. But I just kept going back to that one thought. I said, man, I bet they could really kill this if they just redid it and got rid of some of the musical part of it. Maybe did a little musical number here and there. But really, if they could take that story and put it into a modern technical aspect, I think it would blow me away. And because it's not something that we really see a whole lot of.
But when you take Gene Kelly out of
the Gene Kelly
movie, to me, it would lose something.
Oh, yeah, it would be an entirely different experience.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
What I liked about, though, you were talking about, is because it was the simplicity. You know, that the story was a simple story. But as of the time, and then the simple little Scottish village, I think that fit.
I love the 100-year thing.
Yes,
love
every
it.
100 years
They get to wake up.
They get to wake up.
That's crazy. That's what I love the most about it. My favorite part is actually the story.
Yeah,
my favorite part of it.
Sabrina, I agree with you 100%. I love the story. I did not care for the music in this film. It just didn't capture me like other musicals have in the past. So that was definitely the point of the film that I did not like. What I did like, though, is, Sabrina, you mentioned it as well, the scenery. The studio decided to save money on this film by not filming it, in Scotland and overseas and stuff like that. So they did it in studios, but they made the studios look huge and, massive. And they had these big hills that they'd be running up and down. And it looked like they were, in Scotland.
Now, Brigadoon had been on Broadway for quite a few years, too.
Before the movie came out?
Before the movie came
Really?
out. So that was another thing, is it kind of had that Broadway show feel.
Yes, it did.
About it, too.
Yeah.
So, and that they were able to do that with the scenery, kind of held true to the original Broadway show.
I have to admit that if I was in theater and doing Broadway style presentations, I could see me trying out for the show. Because from a theater aspect of it, you want to be in one that's got a lot of numbers in it, and a lot of activity on stage where you're not in the chorus and you're just sitting out waiting for the next one.
Exactly.
So this is a theater person's dream.
And Toby, I agree with you as far as the fact that anything Gene Kelly is in, he's got that
presence,
that presence, that movie star persona that you like,
and just the styles of dancing he can do. I mean, from tap and your razzmatazz type thing to the graceful, slow, those type dance numbers that he just looks like he's gliding. He just had it all.
Yeah. Funny little fact, trivia for you guys. Sid Charisse, did I say that right?
Yes.
Giddy up for me. Her husband knew who she was dancing with that day by if she had bruises on her arms. She was dancing with Gene Kelly.
He was an athlete.
Yeah. If she didn't, she was dancing with Fred Astaire.
Gene was quite the athlete. And you can tell in some of the jumps and moves that he makes, and he holds some of those positions. You're thinking, dang.
Yeah.
This man had all the moves.
Coming up after the break, we're going to review another great classic musical. It's called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. It's coming your way next on Today's Talk 930 KWOC.